This video will show you the basics of how to format your MLA format research paper. This video will cover both how to format your paper in Microsoft Word as well as in Office 365. In this video, we will talk about font size and choice, setting up your margins, creating a cover page, page numbering, in-text citations, and creating your bibliography. However, there are a few topics we will not be discussing, which include how to find sources, how to format your sources, and how to create good hooks, closures, transitions, and other writing techniques. We will begin by looking at how to format your paper in the desktop version of Microsoft Word. Here we have a very short paper about the use of aircraft in World War II. However, there are some major problems with this paper as it currently sits. We can see that we have some really crazy font choice going on up here. We see that we have some small font and then some bigger font, and we have, our margin is all messed up. We have something going on up here. It does not look very good, but there's some things that we can do to make it look quite a bit better. The first thing we want to make sure is right is our font. So as your formatting paper said, you have two options when it comes to choice. You can either use Times New Roman or Garamond, depending on your personal choice. So what we want to do is we want to highlight our entire paper. And up here, you'll have a couple of choices. Typically, Times New Roman will be up here in the recently used fonts, but you can always scroll down and you'll find it pretty quickly. So that's what Times New Roman looks like. But like I said, I like Garamond. I think it kind of looks like a typewriter, so I'm going to use it. So while it's all highlighted, we also want to make sure our font size is correct because we want everything to look the same. So in the smaller box, we want to select 12. And now all of our letters are the same size. The next thing we want to do is make sure that our spacing is correct. Highlight all of your text. And then up here, there's a button that has an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down. And it says line and paragraph spacing. We want to click on that and then select 2.0. This is what makes double-spaced papers double-spaced. It is 2.0. It is twice as much space as you would need for a regular line. And what's great about this from my perspective is that I can add little notes in the middle here. And what's great for you is that it takes up twice as much space. So it's a win-win for everyone. The next thing we want to fix is our indents. And you will notice here that if I highlight all this, we can see that my text is all messed up. I should be able to draw a straight line from here all the way down without hitting any words. But for some reason, my margins are messed up. My indentation is messed up. So here's how we're going to fix this. First thing we want to do is go up here to the View tab and then click on Ruler. Depending on your version of Word, it might be somewhere else, but it will be under the View tab. Once we have the ruler, we see our rulers popped up here. And you might have noticed earlier in the video, it was already there, but I disabled it so you can see how I turned it on. And what we want to do is we want to highlight everything. And you'll notice that the bottom part of our little arrows and boxes is grayed out. That means that we are highlighting things that has a different indentation point, and it doesn't like it. But that's okay. We are going to click on that box, and we're just going to move it. And you notice that now all of my text is in line. And we want to move it to this part where the gray meets the white. That's going to be our 0. That's our starting indent. That's where we want it. And then that top arrow, we want to drag that halfway to the 1. And now you'll see that all of our paragraphs are automatically indented for us the correct amount. Finally, what we want to do is go over to Layout. And while our indent is correct, right, we're in the same line, there's still way too much space between here and here. We see that's about 1¼ inches. And that's just too much. So we go over to Layout and then Margins, and we hit Normal. And you'll notice now that we have 1 inch on this side, 1 inch on this side. It goes from 6.5 to 7.5 inches. And it's like that all throughout the paper. We still have a nice straight line down the edge here. Our paragraphs are still indented. Everything is looking good. Before I forget, let me make another point. Notice how this line comes right after this line, even though it's a different paragraph. That's the way it should be. If you have an extra space in between paragraphs, that's bad. You need to get rid of that. It looks ugly. Just get rid of it. The next thing we need to do is to create a cover page. The cover page makes your paper look much more professional and also makes sure that you're writing a full 4 pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by erasing all of this info. We don't need it right now. We're going to come back to it. So just get rid of that for now. Next, I want to hit enter until my text ends up on the second page. And then about halfway down my first page, I want to type out the title of my paper. Make sure to capitalize history there, because it's my title. Of and the don't get capitalized in titles there. And then I want to highlight it, and then you notice how I'm indented here. We want to actually undo that. So this is the one place where we don't want an indent, because what we're going to do is that we're actually going to throw this in the center. If we were still indented, we would actually be ½ an inch off of center. Then we want to hit enter, type your name, and then below that, type the date. So I'm actually going to put April 20th, 2018, because that's the due date for this paper. And you see that this is our cover page. It's clean, it's crisp, it looks really good, it looks professional, something you can be proud of. One thing we want to make sure we do is check down here and make sure that we haven't accidentally added an extra space, because we want this to start right on that first line. We don't want to add an extra space. So the next part we need to do is numbering. So we have our cover page, we have our regular page, and we want to be able to number our pages, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then any more than that if we need to. But we see a problem. So I have a 1 up here, and then it's 1 again and 1, and if I made another page, it'd be yet 1 more time. And the reason for that is because I've typed 1 into the header and I've not actually added real page numbers. So what we want to do is we want to double click on this 1 here. And you'll see that this opens up the header and footer tools. And what we want to do is that we want to get rid of that. Adios, right? And then over here we have page number. And I like it where it's at the top of the page on the far right. And it starts at 0 and then 1, 2, 3. We actually want to get rid of 0 here. So what we're going to do is different first page. And now if we close our header and footer, we have nothing on our cover page. But our first page still starts at 1, which is great. That's what we want. We want this to be able to start at 1 without having a number on our cover page. The only thing that should be on our cover page is the title, our name, and the date. Another way that you could add page numbers, if you didn't already have something in the heading, is you can go to Insert, and then over here we have page number, and then you just do the same thing. The next thing we need to talk about is in-text citations. So I gave you a paper that told you 2 different ways to do it. One way is by using parentheses in your citations. The other way is to use footnotes. Now, while I would suggest that you use the parentheses model, which I'll demonstrate in a moment, I will show you how to do footnotes, although just use them with care because they can get pretty messy. So let's say that I want to cite this information here. I say the introduction of the Messerschmitt 262, however, brought about a new era in the theater of combat that raged above the European continent. And I want to show somebody that I really know what I'm talking about. I have a source that backs this up. I want to put my cursor after that period and then up in references. there is a thing that says insert or insert footnote here. And if I type that, I then get a little number down here. You'll see that there's a number that popped up, a 1. And now I can put my source. So www.worldwar2historypage.com or something like that. And that would be my source. If you are doing footnotes, you want to make sure that you include everything. So pages/history/ME262 or whatever that your source is. You want to include the full URL. That being said, don't use footnotes unless you really feel inclined. Most of the time, it's more pain than what it's worth. But I'll leave that there just in case. If you are using parenthetical citations, the way you want to do that is at the end of your paragraph, put a parentheses. Notice this is after the period and there is a space between the period and the parentheses. And then I'm just going to type in, if it's a website, www.worldwar2history.com. Closed. That's it. That is the only thing I want, just the main website name. In your bibliography at the end, you're going to have that full source. And that's great. But right now, I just want the basic website. If I was getting this from a book, let's say Jennings wrote it, the author Jennings wrote it, I would put the author's last name, and then I also want to put the page number where I got that info. So I'm going to say I got it from page 45. No comma, just a space. If it was over several pages, I would put -47 or whatever that end page is. And that way I know if I want to find where I got this info from, I can go to my bibliography, find this book by Jennings, and then go to 45 to 47, and that's where I'm going to find that info. No period at the end, it just stops. That's it. The last thing we want to do is create our bibliography. So we have our sources here either in parenthetical form or down here in the footnotes. But sometimes we use sources, but we don't necessarily cite them. So it might be just a paper that we read or a book that we read just to get some info, but we didn't find anything that we really wanted to put into our paper specifically. But we still read it, we still got info from it, so we need to cite it. And that's where the bibliography comes in handy. So we want to go down here, and we're just going to hit enter until we get to a new page. See our numbers updated there. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to type bibliography. Ooh, spelling is off today. We're going to highlight it, center it. Great, awesome. Hit enter, go back to the left. And now here is the moment where you go, thank goodness I didn't delete that file. If you still have your independent research, like this, I have great news. You can copy the whole thing. So copy, go back over to your paper, and then you want to paste it with the source formatting or the destination theme, one of those two. I'm going to use destination theme. And now look at that. It's there. I didn't have to type a single thing. I didn't even have to touch my keyboard, just my mouse. That's great. I love it when I don't have to touch my keyboard. But you see that the hanging indent is already there. You see up here with our ruler, it's all nice and together. And we have all of our sources. They're already in order. It's great. We want to make sure that there's that one line between each one, but that should already be there. And then, of course, you want to make sure it's in alphabetical order. But other than that, you're done. You want to make sure that you do your bibliography at the end, because let's say that I end up typing some more stuff here, right? And it takes up a couple more lines, right? Then it's going to push the bibliography down. So make sure that you don't do that. You want to make sure that the bibliography is at the top of your final page. And take note, the bibliography does not count towards your page count. So if your bibliography is page 4, you've only written me 3 pages. So next, we're going to look at how to format your paper in Office 365. Now that we've seen how to edit our paper in Microsoft Word, we are now going to look at how to do this in Office 365. I'm not going to explain why we are doing these particular things. If you want to know why we are changing certain options, you can check that out in the first part where we're doing it in Microsoft Word. Here it's going to be a little bit quicker. I'm just going to be showing you how to actually change the items. As we did in Microsoft Word, the first thing we want to do is change our text. So I'm going to highlight all of my text here. And this time I'm actually going to do Times New Roman, just to make it a little bit different. So Times New Roman, and then size 12. And now we have all of our text looking the same. Next, we want to make sure that our spacing is correct. So we're going to highlight all of our paper using the shift and the arrow keys to do this. And we once again click on the same type of button. It looks just the same that it does in Microsoft Word. And we click 2. It says 2 instead of 2.0 for some reason. And there you go. We're now double spaced. The next thing we need to fix is our indent. So just like before, we have our paper and it's messed up a little bit. Here's how you can do this. You're going to highlight all of your text. And then if we go to page layout, you'll notice that there's an indent option here, and it is spaced out because similar to how the ruler was spaced out when we were doing Word, if it has different values for what we have highlighted, it's going to be spaced out, or it's not going to be there. So we just want to put 0, and we see that everything is now to the left. We can also click on this button, Special Indent, and First Line, and it automatically indents all of our paragraphs for us. So we've reset our indent to the left, and we have indented our first paragraph. The next thing we need to do is make sure that our margins are correct. So once again, we're going to go to Page Layout, Margins, and we want to go Normal. You'll notice that Normal is 1 inch on all sides, whereas the default is 1 inch on the top and bottom, but then 1 1/4 inch on the left and right. We don't want that. We want 1 on all sides. You see it shifts it over just a little bit. And just like before, we're going to be creating our cover page. So we want to put that onto the second page. You'll notice that on Office 365, it has these dotted lines, and that shows us where our, looks like it changed its mind on us. That is where our page break is. So let's put it about here, right? So the history of the ME262, bump it over, and then let's see, page layout, we're at 0, cool, all right, great. Enter your name, the date, and there you go. There's your cover page. Make sure that this lines up so that this will be the first part of your second page. You can also go into reading view here, and it'll show you it'll show you what this will look like. The last thing we need to do is add our page numbers. So if we go up to header, first thing we want to do, just to make sure that everything's cleaned out, go over to options, remove headers and footers, remove all, and now you've got a clean slate to work with. If you go over to insert, you can go to page numbers, top right corner, that's the one we want. And you'll notice that now we have this little bracket with a number, and that'll automatically number all of our pages for us. So if we go into reading view, we'll notice a problem though. On our cover page, it has page number 0, and we don't want that. That's not what we want. We want to get rid of that. So if we go back to our browser, go back into Office 365, and we go up to header, we can click options and say different first page. So if we click that, it'll actually remove it from here, and you'll see that these two tabs open up. So on the first page, there will be nothing, and the other pages, it'll still be there. So now if we go back to reading view, we'll see that our cover page is nice and clean with just our title, name, and date. But then our first page still has our page number, and you can see it automatically tracks it for us. And that's it. You're done. You've done everything you need to do for this paper. You can now print it off, give it to me, and get a good grade. One last thing that you need to know about this, I did not talk about your citations, so either in-text citations or your bibliography. Go back and watch the Microsoft Office video, or part of this video, because that'll show you how to do that. It's the exact same thing in Word. You're typing the same stuff. Just don't do footnotes. They're complicated. Don't do it. Save yourself the hassle.